Well, what are we doing here? We're back to work, and this is episode. What are we doing? Number 5. My name is Phil, and you're listening to the Lip. 220 episodes of the Lip consecutively, no interruptions. What are we doing? Well, that's what we're doing. What are we doing? Episode number 5 of What Are We Doing? Should be fun. Now, it's back to work, like I said. I took about pretty much the month of July off after stacking up a whole bunch of episodes. Probably a total of maybe like not just the ones for all of July, but the first one that happened last week, which was the first one in August. So I probably took about 5 weeks where I didn't have to record a show. And during that time, I got to rest, relax, and reflect and get myself together and prepared to do a whole bunch more shows. Got to take some more good notes and discover exactly what it is that I'm about to do next. For example, I got to add a few parts to this show because of the time that I spent reflecting. Of course, it's always good to do these sort of episodes because I like to ask that question about what we do, not just as people, but ultimately, I ask that question because I think that us as a society really need to know, even though there's no possible answer to that question, because the things that I see are impossible to get definitive answers for, because I've discovered and determined that realistically, there is no way to really answer the question of what are we doing, because it seems like just as I asked the question, as Roddy Piper would say, they changed the answer. Well, the other way around, I said it wrong. It's terrible. Sorry, Mr. Piper. But what you said is, when you think you have the answer, he then changes the question. And that's what's happened. When I think I know what these people are doing, they change the question and you get totally lost. It's just confusing as it gets. But at least you got to try, right? Now, once again, like I said, I'm recording a little early, but as a result of me having to have created a show for last week much earlier than it actually was supposed to release, I didn't actually get to mention what I'm about to mention now. 3 big celebrities have passed away, and each of them, in their own right, certainly left their impact. The first one was Malcolm Jamal Warner. Biggest thing he did was The Cosby Show. Craziest part about it, I heard he won a Grammy. A Grammy? I didn't even know he sang, but he did some good stuff. Young man, and I can say that because he was only actually 7 years older than me, 54. So 54 would have been old for me 20 years ago, but at 47, 54 is not that old anymore. Yeah, young guy. Unfortunately, he was a he passed away very early, but he was a very good man, and he left a big impact on us as a society. Next guy who passed away at, at 76 years old, one of the greatest rock and roll artists of all time, essentially credited as one of the first sound of heavy metal, and that is Ozzy Osbourne. The great thing about Ozzy at the end was he got his flowers. Not that he didn't get his flowers prior to it, but he did one last show a few weeks before he passed away. And all kinds of metal bands were there to pay tribute to him. And he did it for the fans. They appreciated him. He appreciated them. You couldn't ask for a better way to send off. But we definitely lost an icon in music. And then finally, the death that to me is, for some, the most controversial, but for me, it was the biggest piece of my childhood because I remember when he slammed that big, nasty giant in front of 93,000 people in the Pontiac Silverdome. I remember when the Mega Powers exploded. I remember when it was title for title in the Ultimate Challenge, and he came up short for the first time in a long time to the Ultimate Warrior. I'm speaking about Terry Bollea, otherwise known as Hulk Hogan. Yeah, say what you want about his political affiliations. Say what you want about the controversial things that have happened that he said. And sometimes stories that he would talk about were a little less than accurate, let's say. But as a professional wrestling fan, I know for certain that professional wrestling as it is today would not be the same if it wasn't for the mainstream popularity that Hulk Hogan garnered and lent out to all of professional wrestling to make it just even bigger than it already is. That was due to his influence and popularity throughout the entire world. It's safe to say that he was probably one of the most recognizable people on the planet Earth. Anywhere you go in the world, you could say these names and people would know exactly who you're talking about. You could say Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. You could say Muhammad Ali, Michael Jackson, Prince, Ozzy Osbourne. And among those people that you could say that about is Hulk Hogan. Just people knew who he was. People who weren't even born when that man stepped into the ring know who he is. That's what kind of impact he had on pop culture and professional wrestling. But I say to the families of Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, and Hulk Hogan, sorry for your loss and the loss for us all. Now it is time to do the fill in the blank. Well, since I am a much bigger wrestling fan than I am of anything else besides maybe about neck and neck with football, really is. I'll have to go with this question as far as the fill in the blanks go. Did I ever get to see Hulk Hogan live? That blank will be filled in with no. I never got to see Hulk Hogan live in the ring. Now, granted, a friend of mine that I went to high school with, his name is Dave Kokotis, and he has a show that he does on YouTube as well, Coco Sports. He had the privilege of meeting Hulk Hogan, And he also had the privilege of working with Hulk Hogan because I know that Dave did some wrestling shows and some events in his past, and he actually got to meet and work with Hulk Hogan, and that's one of the coolest things I can think of. But as far as me personally, I never got to see Hulk Hogan live. Never, well, inside the arena. I watched him live on pay per view and other things of that nature. Saturday night's main event, but I never got to see him in the arena live, and I was never in a place where he was live. But that's the way I'd have to answer that question. The question was, did I ever get to see Hulk Hogan live? And the answer to that fill in the blank question is no. Now it's time for me to ring the bell and go to the main event. What are we doing? What are we doing? It's a question that I'm going to ask quite a few times as I do this episode. Don't be offended. Don't be upset. Don't ignore it. It's just what I'm going to do. So be prepared for me to say it quite a few times. And now I'm looking at what we're going to do here. We're going to start off because this is mildly frustrating. We'll go with this one first. We'll go with this one. The date, June 3rd, 2025. This year, last month as I record, almost 2 months ago. I drove up to the bank in the parking lot because I needed to use the ATM. And as I'm about to turn into the bank, I see the most interesting thing. So I'll need to set this up. The bank is off of the road, and there's a really wide sidewalk. Not just your normal, just I guess 3 feet of sidewalk. It expands to maybe like I guess 15, 20 feet. It's a lot. It's a lot. And there's an ATM that's on the front of the building. And in the parking lot, there are designated spaces, about 3 of them. And they specifically say for ATM parking. So the idea is either to drive into the bank, you make the turn into the bank, you pull into one of those parking spaces, you get out of your car, and you walk up to the ATM. Then on the other side of the bank, facing outward, there is another ATM. Now this one is a drive-up ATM. It's got the blacktop. You just drive your car up. If you have to make bank deposits, you can make the bank deposits from your vehicle. You never have to get out. If you want to use the ATM, you just pull right up to it, open up your window. Sometimes you got to open the door in order to get all the way in with your card. But you still get the point and you still get in. Now, what are we doing? As I drove up to the bank on June 3rd, 2025, and I'm going to spit that date out again because I saw what was probably the most amusing yet frustrating thing I'd ever seen. In that area where there was I don't know, like I said, 20 feet of not asphalt, concrete, it was a sidewalk. There was a vehicle parked on the sidewalk, and the guy was going over to the ATM, and he pulled his car up like I said, on the sidewalk, that big sidewalk, and he was using the ATM there. And I just looked and I just shook my head in complete amazement and just utter shock. Like, I had seen a few people do this before, and every time I saw it, I still had that same level of shock and disbelief that somebody would just drive their car on the sidewalk and leave it there. Because I believe that there is a reason for that parking space. Like I said, those three parking spaces that say park here to use the ATM, and then you go walk up to it because that's the walk up ATM. Yet you drove your car to the walk up ATM, directly to the walk up ATM. I'm confused. I scratched my head and I was really, really stunned. But I moved on. I thought to myself, I can I can handle this. I can move forward and I can just get past this because I've done it twice before where I saw somebody park in that walk up spot, the ATM. I just moved on and went around to the drive through ATM, which is where my intentions were to go. And this is another part of why I ask, what are we doing? Because here is a scenario that just made me really lose my mind. Because as I now drive around the other side of the bank where the other ATM is, a drive through ATM, there's a woman standing in the drive through ATM. No car, just standing there at the drive through ATM. Now think about this. There's a guy who drove up to the walk up ATM, and now there's a woman standing in the drive through ATM. What are we doing? Like, these people are in the wrong place. Now, I would not be losing my mind if they were reversed. If the guy who drove his car went to the drive up ATM and the lady who was standing at the drive up ATM went to the standing ATM, that would be what's supposed to be. But they were in the absolute reverse spot. And they were just, I don't understand. I can't figure it out for life. Why? Why does that happen? What are we doing as a society that makes people think that you can walk in the drive through ATM and you can drive up to the walk up ATM? Like, what? What is wrong with these people? I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I mean, it just makes me wonder, am I doing it wrong, maybe? Is it wrong of me to drive my car through the drive through ATM? Maybe I should have parked over on the spot where you're supposed to walk up to it. Or maybe I should have just parked and walked through the drive through ATM, and that might have been the right thing to do. Or maybe I should just get a new bank altogether, just because this is just so confusing to me that it would just be simpler to go to a bank that has no ATM on the outside and you have to go inside the bank. Because then I wouldn't have that confusing option of whether I should drive through the drive through or walk through the drive through, drive through the walk up or walk up to the drive through. Those four options would be gone if I just went to a bank that I had to go inside and do my banking that way. It would just eliminate any possibility of confusion. Maybe it's me and it's not them, but I'm sure that that's not the case. It's them. What are we doing as a society when we think that that's okay to do? I mean, just I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I don't. Under any circumstances, I don't get it. And that's why I asked the question, what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, why is that even a thing? It just shouldn't be. Under no circumstances should that be a thing. It just absolutely shouldn't. I mean, it makes you ask the question, if you were, say, living in the Garden State, New Jersey, my home state, if you were to just jump on one of the big roads that literally goes through the top to the bottom of the state called the Garden State Parkway, and just pull onto the parkway and just stop your car in the center lane because it's a parkway. You wouldn't do anything like that. It's ridiculous. You would not go to somebody's house and just pull up to their driveway and just keep forward and reversing back and forth in their driveway. So you're driving in their driveway constantly. You wouldn't do that either. That's just ridiculous. So I don't know. What are we doing? What are we doing? I just have to ask. I really, really have to ask. If that isn't bad enough, I'm going to tell you that I'm not exempt from this. And I'm going to go into what I do. And I'm not proud of it, not in any way. But it's a terrible habit. And God knows I do it on purpose. And I'm ashamed, but not ashamed of it. I have this really bad tendency. As people know, I love pizza tremendously. I keep DiGiorno's in the house a lot of times, just in case I haven't had my weekly fix of pizza. But I have a really bad habit sometimes. It's not often that I couldn't go for pizza, but I have this tendency to like to order pizza sometimes on rainy days. Really rainy days. It can't just be a few drops. No, it's got to be downpouring. And I'll have a tendency to order pizza then and wait for the delivery driver to drop it off. And the only reason why I ordered it was because it was downpouring. I'm not proud of myself, but it's like I just do it. There's no excuse for why I do it. I shouldn't, but I do. I just order the pizza on days when it's just downpouring. I just do. Of all the bad habits that I have, that's probably one of the worst. Because now I'm taking this person who is just out to collect a paycheck and I'm putting them in harm's way because I want a pizza and I'm asking them to drive their personal vehicle in a terrible storm to bring me food when this is the real bad part. This is the part that I'm really not proud of. Most of the time when I do that, when it rains, I don't even really want pizza. And it's hard to say that I don't want pizza, but a lot of times when it's raining real heavy, I don't really want the pizza. Because if I wanted pizza that bad, even when it's raining heavily, I'll still go to one of my favorite places. But I won't order from Domino's, for example, who delivers. The good places I find don't deliver. Hi, Phoenix. My daughter's cat. He had something to say. He thinks I'm a real bad about that too. You're right, Phoenix. I shouldn't do that. But I can't help myself. But on that note, I actually got what I deserved a few weeks ago when I did just that. When I ordered a pizza on another one of those stormy days. And I like Domino's when I order, especially on those stormy days, because I use the Domino's tracker to find out when the pizza's on its way in the oven and stuff like that. And when they show up, it's really accurate. The tracker really does tell you when they're going to get there. And they show up, and then they knock on the door, usually soaked to the underwear, I imagine, because when I do this on those really bad tendencies that I have to order pizza, it's really, really raining heavily. But like I said, And they always bring it, and it's always dry. Not a drop of water on my pizza box, not one. And I typically give these people, instead of the 15%, I usually try to give them like 30 because I know what I'm doing is bad. I shouldn't ask them to do what they did because now if it's one thing if I absolutely wanted the pizza when it was raining and I said, oh, it's going to order it anyway. But when I do that, it's not even because I want it. It's just because I just I'm just a bad person when it comes to that. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to not do it anymore. I can't make any promises, but I'm going to try my best not to do it anymore. And you see, like I said, a few weeks ago, I got mine because I ordered it again when it was heavily raining. And like I said, usually the guy will knock on the door and wait until I get up and answer it. And then I take the pizza, and they're always highly respectful. This time, dude must have just not wanted any part of having to drive his personal vehicle to my house in that terrible rain where he had to walk up a wet, uh, wet hill essentially to get up to my front door, holding that pizza in his hand. Dude was like, "Yeah, this guy's a jerk." And what he did was he just knocked on the door real quick, dropped the pizza on the floor, and he was out. Now, if I didn't catch a glimpse of him when he was on his way back to his car, I wouldn't have noticed him. If I had chosen to go take my evening medication, which I would have done about that time that he came, I would have missed him. If I had to go to the bathroom, I would have missed him. And he just left my pizza on the ground. I would have not seen him, and I wouldn't have seen the pizza, and I would have been extra crabby, but I would have been able to, I would have deserved what I got. I really would have. But I caught him on his way down, and I got up, I ran outside, looked around, and I saw the pizza on the ground, not in the chair, which is sitting next to the door where he put the pizza, which is just, I don't understand why he took the extra energy to drop it on the floor when he could have just dropped it a little bit lower and put it in the chair. But again, I bought that. That was my fault. And it would have served me right if I didn't see him. And he left the pizza there and it stayed on the ground for a considerable amount of time before I finally walked out and saw it. I would have deserved it. But why? The real what are we doing is a combination is not what he did, man. He deserved to do what he did. But at the same time, unlike all the other delivery drivers, he didn't take the time to wait until I got up. He was out, and I gave him a huge tip, and he just left my pizza there. But at the same time, I didn't have to order a pizza that night. I really didn't. I really didn't. And in all honesty, I probably shouldn't have because it was just as nasty raining day as there has ever been. Just bad news. So, what are we doing? Me. What am I doing? Did I have to do that? Should I have done it? Nah, really shouldn't have. I really, really shouldn't have. But I bought that. Let's see what's next on the agenda. What are we doing here? Let's see. One of these two is towards the end. Which one's? Well, that means that this one's going to be next. Wall under my house has had a particularly large amount of homeless individuals panhandling outside of it over the last 2 years. Now, when I first moved here about 5 years ago and actually started living in the building 4 years ago, there weren't any homeless people panhandling outside the Wawa. or there was very few that were noticeable. Then a couple of years ago, it started to become um, more noticeable. A lot more people would be out and panhandling, and it was routinely, sadly, it was multiple different people. So it's not even the same person every time you'd go. There would be almost a turnstile of homeless people who would be waiting, and they would usually be waiting at the back door, but sometimes there'd be one at the front door, and they would be asking for change, which of course, I mean, they need it. Sometimes, granted, sadly, they are only asking for change to buy drugs and alcohol. Then there's the few that really want to ask for money so that they can get something to eat. It's impossible to differentiate between the two. If you feel the need to have the heartstrings pull and give the homeless person who's outside there some money, you hope that they use it for a good purpose, but it's hard to tell if they will or not. Now, I believe I told the story about an individual who overdosed on heroin not too far away from my house that I helped to keep alive, put him in a recovery position and called 911 so they could give him the Narcan. Then there was another person who was homeless who probably a week prior to that, and this was last year, overdosed actually in the parking lot at the Wawa that's across the street, not too far away from my house. And that individual is one of the people who I've seen asking for money outside of Wawa, meaning that they took their money and they put it in their veins as opposed to in their stomach. But the people who gave them change or money, whatever it was they gave them, did it with good intentions. And because they had good intentions, regardless what the person spent the money on, the person who gave it to them did it not because they wanted them to go and get high, but they were genuinely trying to help the person. Now, this Wawa near my house put up a sign that I think is humane. And since I've seen the sign, I haven't seen any homeless people trying to panhandle at the store. And this was maybe, like I said, I'm recording this show July 30th. Yeah, it's July 30th, Phoenix. And the people are going to hear it on August 9th, Phoenix, of 2025. So, probably been, by the time you hear this, it would have probably been on the door a month. And the sign specifically said, well, not specifically, I'm going to paraphrase. The sign said, it's okay to give to homeless people, but not here. They said they're trying to stop panhandling out in front of the store, which I understand. It makes a lot of sense to me because I have young daughters who I sometimes send to Wawa so they can get some treats, and I personally don't necessarily feel comfortable with them going to the store, knowing that there are sometimes homeless individuals, sometimes men, sometimes women, potentially drug addicts, who are outside the door where my girls are going in the store and going back out. Not necessarily the most comforting feeling. And Wawa feels that way too, apparently. And with their sign, they actually, like I said, it's a humane thing because they don't want you to give them money outside the store, but they have given the option for you if you really feel like helping the homeless people in the area in general. There's a number that they put on that little sign, and that number essentially is a place where you can donate and give to homeless individuals. So essentially, what they're telling you is don't give them money here because it's going to keep them out there. And there are some people who will not go to the store because they just feel uncomfortable with the homeless people who are there asking them for money for multiple reasons. One, they may just feel uncomfortable with the homeless person sitting there. Two, they feel obligated to give them money. Three, they feel that they could be a threat and they don't want to have to encounter them. And that just makes people not want to go shopping in the store sometimes. So I understand it from their perspective. Heck, I was a manager at a Wawa at one time. And at the Wawa that I was a manager at, it was in New Jersey, in the middle of nowhere. So realistically, there wasn't going to be any homeless people hanging around outside of my store because there was nothing around, nothing at all. But here in Philadelphia, where I live now, there's plenty around besides the Wawa. Like you go, you throw a stone, there's four stores, and there's a lot more people who are going to be moving in and out of the store, and it just makes for a situation where it makes people uneasy a little bit, and even the employees inside the store, especially overnight. Um, as somebody who was a manager at Wawa, I worked there overnight, and you have less staff. Now, granted, in the big stores, which is what you see now, where they have the gas, and even when I was working overnight in New Jersey, the law states that you can't pump your own gas because it just makes sense not to pump your own gas because who wants to stand outside in the rain, in the snow, pumping your own gas? That's a totally other subject that we'll get into maybe later. But you have less staff in the store, which means that in the small stores, which there are few of them, they're getting less and less. I'm not going to tell you how many people are in there because that's just, I don't want to get into that. That's a safety issue. It's almost like me divulging the amount of people who were in the prison when I worked there. I'm not going to tell you any of that. Sorry, I love you, my listeners, but I'm not going to jeopardize people's safety with numbers like that. Creates the vulnerabilities in the store. There will be certain things I'll talk about, but I won't talk about that. I'm not going to tell you about anything like that. But I will say this. A lot of times there are a lot of young ladies who may be there. Not saying that the young ladies are defenseless, but again, I've got a couple of daughters and I've worked overnight. I don't necessarily want to think that my daughters will be there overnight with some of the characters that may be in and out of the store during that time period. Now, on that note, I understand completely why they don't want them there. So, why is this up for debate with the question, what are we doing? It's because what kind of society do we live in where we have a migration of homeless people. What is that? How did that happen? What are we doing? Especially when you see the homeless vets. That, to me, should not be a thing at all. It shouldn't be a thing. Like, all the money we waste in this country that we get taxes that we have to pay, and we have people who defend our country, who fought in wars, who gave some, because if they're alive, they didn't give all, but they gave some. And if they actually were boots on the ground somewhere, they gave a lot, because I personally know several people who were boots on the ground in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. And granted, it takes a toll on you. I mean, there's a price to pay. I've said it, I think, a couple times. Like, even for me, working in the jail for 5 years, there's a price to pay. There really is. And it's one thing to be surrounded by inmates, and it's another thing to be surrounded by enemies who literally have one agenda, and that is to kill you. And yet they do it. They sign up for it. So, to me, that's where the what are we doing? I think about the vets who are homeless. Because if you fought for this country, there is no reason you should be sleeping outside. None. At the very minimum. Of course, I'm not a politician, and I don't even play one on TV. But I think that amongst the services that we give to the armed forces people, and yeah, I understand it's going to cost a lot of money, but this is money well spent. I believe that there should be built housing, low income, even if there's bunks with two people to a room, three to a room, but there should be some possible building structure that we can create where if you're a veteran and you've got nowhere to go, it should be automatic that in all 50 states, there should be some place for you to go. One in every other town, one every third town, whatever. There should be some place for anybody who's been a veteran who needs a place to stay to go. It just should be automatically. It shouldn't be anything that we have to even question or debate. There should be a spot. Just automatic. It just should be. It should be. Like, there shouldn't be any question about it. And that's where I ask the question, why isn't there? And what are we doing? We should be fixing this problem. We really should. Well, I have two more possible subjects. Yes, Phoenix. I don't know if you guys can hear him, but he's asking me something. I'm gonna go with yeah. I'm gonna figure out which one I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna go with I already told Mr. Patrick, a friend of mine who I mention very often and a friend of the show. Shout out to Houston's Home Innovations, and it's a great little show to listen to when he's recording. Got to check him out. But more importantly, Zenith Transport. If you got something and you need to take it somewhere, Patrick Houston, Zenith Transport is the way to go. Whether you're moving your apartment, 2 rooms, he'll do that for you. Or if you just have a package you need delivered from a store to your house, he's got you covered. And I actually talked to him about this particular part of What Are We Doing? And I'm going to go here. And I think I'm going to save this other one for another day. And I'm excited about that. So here we go. This happened on July 15th, 2025. Back in Southwest Philly, the Overbrook section, more specifically, one of my favorite streets, 52nd Street. Now, there's a shop right there I just loved to go to when I lived in that area. Unfortunately, it got torn apart during the COVID riots, which was just ridiculous. But it is what it is. It was what it was. And on, like I said, July 15th, 2025, I have my oldest daughter, Aurora. I had to take her to the doctor. And on the way back, she wanted some cookies. And we had to go past the shop, right? So I said, you know what? I don't know if they have the cookies you're looking for, but we'll go in here and find out anyway because I wanted to go back inside that store that I went to so frequently. Well, during my days of working out so hard and so heavily, I bought gallons and gallons and gallons of water from this place, not to mention I did our grocery shopping. So I figured let me go in there, walk around real quick, get what we need and go. Turns out when we were in there, I found something really cool. They had this Days soda, watermelon, and peach. And I was just thrilled to see it. I never actually saw the watermelon before. And the peach from that brand I never had. And I didn't know if it's something new that they had or not, but I know that I had never seen watermelon soda before. And the peach is usually good no matter where. And I figured, let me go get one of these. So I got one for my other daughter who was home and for my mother, both the watermelon and peach. And we got the cookies and we're on our way out. Now, most of the time when you go to Walmart, there's usually that person at the ed at the front who is doing a dual job, both greeting people as they come in and checking receipts as they go out. And typically, it's a formality. The people usually look at the receipt and they just let you go. You could have 8 75-inch TVs, paid for none of them. You only went in there to get a bag of Tic Tacs, and they'll just check it off and you'll just go out the door, and you wouldn't be the wiser. But at least they looked at the receipt. Now, back to ShopRite. This place never did that before. And it had been, since I went into that store, it had been years since I went into the store. 2019, we moved out of that area. Um, I canceled my gym membership because I had to go back to that area where that store is in 2022, so that was 3 years. Uh, COVID time, I had to stop back over there. So still 2022, 23 when I canceled the subscription. So it was at least 3 years that I've been there. And they changed the policy. Apparently, they check receipts now. They must have, just because of the barbarians that um, mobbed the place during 2020, and they just didn't trust anybody at that point. But I don't blame them for not trusting anybody. I get that. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. And so we're on our way out, and I was stunned because I didn't realize that they had somebody there checking the receipts. And we were about to go. Me and Aurora just were carrying our stuff. And the guy's like, "Yeah, I need to see your receipt." I'm like, "Okay." I went to the self checkout. My receipt was in my pocket. I'm like, all right, wait for me to pull this thing out. So I'm maneuvering the stuff. And there was an individual who came out and went past us. And another employee said, "Oh, don't worry about it. He's good. I know him." And I looked at him like he had six heads. And I'm like, all right, so you're going to let this guy go. And there was no issue with that, right? Okay, cool. Fine. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And this other guy is insisting that I check my receipt. Now I'm looking at him like, all right, it's not so severe that I need to Doctor Doom to Thanos and rip your skeleton out of your body. I'm going to allow you to get your job done. And so what I did was I handed him the receipt, which I still have currently. Got to laminate it because this one means a lot to me because it just goes to show how ridiculous some people are. And I'm going to keep this sucker, and I'm possibly going to bring it back there because it was so ridiculous. And what is going to happen is, as I find the receipt and I hand it to him, because it was in my pocket, it was folded closed so that all you seen was the blank paper on the outside. And I handed it to the guy. And he had a pen in his hand so that he could check off the receipt as all those receipt checkers do, saying that they looked at it. Now, going back to Walmart, they take the receipt and they make sure to look at the words and the numbers, and sometimes they'll look at your cart, not all the time. At least they make a good showing of it that they're looking at your receipt. And then they give you the check mark. The one really nice lady at the Walmart that we go to a lot will actually put a smile face on the receipt because my daughter likes to see the smile face. Maggie, the younger one who wasn't with us this time. But of course, this guy has my receipt folded so that he can't see anything on the paper, and he just sort of puts a check mark on. Okay, you're good. I looked at him and I was like, "So you made me dig in my pocket for this receipt for items that I absolutely paid for, so I could show it to you, and you don't even at least pretend to look at the words on the receipt. You just check off the back, the plain, empty back part of the receipt that has no words on it, not even coupons. This is just a flat white receipt tape. No coupons on the back, no advertisements, no nothing. And you check that off without even opening the receipt that I gave you? I'm going to go out and say I love Brown Family ShopRites. The man ran for mayor, but he didn't survive the what do you call He didn't. Oh man, my brain is. Those six concussions are getting to me. Apparently, I'll talk about that later. um, but he didn't survive the democratic process to get to be the person who was elected for mayor. But he actually writes this guy a check to see if people are stealing stuff when he held me there for a minute to have to fight through my pocket in order to get the receipt. And he doesn't even look at it. Bruh, if I was Mr. Brown and I saw that, I'd fire him on the spot. Because you're clearly not doing what I asked you to do. At the very least, you could have at least pretended to look at the paper, but you didn't even pretend to look at the paper. You didn't look at it at all. You just took the blank side, looked at the blank side like you were going to see what I bought, and you checked off on it. I'm going to do a an old wrestling thing. One of the great guys who used to play football for I can't remember what team it was he played for. The big cat, Ernie Ladd. Those Cowboys. Can't remember. But he would tell King Kong Bundy early in his career, every time you cash a check, you're stealing. That guy who was supposed to look at my receipt and tell me if I was stealing anything, who didn't look at my receipt, brother, every time you cash a check or get direct deposit, you just stole from Mr. Brown. You stole from him. Stole from him. Because you definitely did not do the job that he's asking you to do. You are literally wasting money. It just money that he could have used to help buy his next mansion. Better yet, money that he could have used to hire somebody else to do your job. And I don't get it. What are we doing? What are we doing? At least pretend to do your job. At least pretend. But if you're not even capable of pretending to do your work, what is the point? And the crazy part about that is, of course, the the person that I am. I had to make a comment when I saw him swipe the back. I told my daughter in front of him, "Man, if I knew he was going to do that, we should have taken three more within earshot of him." But I think he was too dense to even understand what I was saying. I don't know. What are we doing? This is why you really have to read the applications when people submit them. You really do, because you're going to find out that maybe their qualifications aren't up to the standard. Or better yet, I mean, when you're in the interview with somebody, it's pretty clear, I believe, just based on the people that I've pre-interviewed. You talk to somebody for about 5 minutes, and you can pretty much generally tell if the person is capable of doing the job you asked them to do or not. About 10 minutes is all it takes. And this dude, I can't imagine interviewing him and thinking that he's going to do anything except for be a complete waste of my money if I were the person who's hired. I'm just going to put it out there. That's what he was. But you know what they say, or I should say, you know what I say. Nobody's perfect except for Kurt Hennig. And on that note, I'm going to ring the bell and get in the main event. Of course, now I'm going to go directly into the spear of the week, and because I don't want to waste much more of my breath on that guy, it's pretty obvious that the spear of the week is, in fact, the ShopRite receipt checker. Because, boy, if I was the manager at that store and I was not a zombie, but even if you were a zombie, you could tell that this guy is not doing what he's supposed to do. And I believe he should be, I don't know what he can do in the store. I mean, to make it so that he's not wasting money, I don't know. Maybe he can, I would maybe have him fill the shelves because if he's physically doing some type of labor, at least you're getting your money's worth out of it. But if you're asking him to look at the receipts, he's clearly not doing that. So he's not he's not worth the money that he's getting paid. He's not. Spear of the week, receipt taker at ShopRite. Now I'm going to go into the book of questions. Magic book of questions. The question that I'm going to answer this week is going to be, let's see. Hmm. Well, if I had to answer one question, it would be Woo, there's one that I want to answer, but I think I might pass on that one. There's 3,000 of these questions, and I think I'll answer that one privately, but not today. Uh, I think, hmm, hmm. Uh, so many good questions. Well, I'm going to answer this question when I do. I'm gonna put my card in here so I can actually remember where it is at, and I'm going to answer that question when I do my episode about a different episode. Let's just put it that way. Here comes a question. Two. Uh, mm, there's a lot of good questions here. A lot of good ones. And I think, here we go. I think I'll go with this one because it's fun. I believe I mentioned, well, this is the question. What is one of your favorite photos and what is the sentiment attached? What is one of your favorite photos and what is the sentiment attached? Well, unfortunately, it's a photo that I no longer have, which is sad because I would have loved to have put that in the in my office, or as I like to call it now, the museum, and it would have had a place of prominence. This photo is of me in eighth grade, and I was at home in a wrestling match, home game, and it was me against a kid who wrestled from Manchester in New Jersey, and his name was Ben Marshall. Never forget this kid because I competed with him in track, and he moved up in weight class before I stopped wrestling. But Ben was a really good wrestler, especially in eighth grade. He was literally undefeated until he wrestled me. I had a decent record. I ended up winning third in the county, and he ended up becoming the champion, which was my goal. He won the whole thing. But all that summer, going into eighth grade, I told anyone who would listen that I was going to be the Ocean County champion at 170. It was in my mind. I spoke it. I was going to do it. Now, what turned out to happen was this photo was me in a position where I was getting cradled in the third period of the match. And all there is me looking down. You can see the back of my head, and you can see him cradling me as I'm trying to get up, trying to get free of this cradle. And then it happened. I had what I like to call my Hitman moment. Now, anybody who watched Bret the Hitman Hart's wrestling career knows that some of his biggest wins in some of his biggest matches, the match against Roddy Piper when he was in the sleeper hold and he ran up the turnbuckles and he flipped him and he ended up putting Piper's shoulders on the mat and pinning him and beating him to become Intercontinental Champion. And then another one, speaking of Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Perfect was dropping a leg a few times and then the Hitman caught him. And in the midst of being caught, Hitman turned him into the sharpshooter, which of course was the Hitman's finishing move, and he beat Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental title. One of my favorite matches, and I think it's probably one of the best matches that has ever happened. It's a great match. And this was my Hitman moment. To set the stage for this picture, I was being cradled, like I said, and it was the third period in high school, well, in seventh and eighth grade, middle school wrestling. At the time, I don't know what it's like now, but the periods were 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes. And the way you win in a high school wrestling match is very specific. There's a couple ways you can win. Obviously, you can be pinned. The other way is you can have more points than your opponent when the third period ends. Then there's a technical victory. And at the time in New Jersey, if you have 15 points more than your opponent, you then win by technical victory, and that can happen in any period. If you get 15 points ahead of your opponent, it's automatically over, and your opponent wins, and you win. Now, what made this my Hitman moment was Ben was beating me all over the mat. First period, he kicked my butt. Second period, he kicked my butt. Third period, he kicked my butt. I was just getting killed by him, but I wouldn't let him beat me. He didn't pin me. He got some back points, and he had, in the third period, me set up to be cradled. And if he got me and got even 2 back points, he would have beaten me by technical victory, which of course would have given his team 5 points. Now, if my shoulders hit the mat, he'd have pinned me, and he would have gotten his team 6 points. And if he just continued to ride me, he would have beaten me by having more points than me, and his team would have gotten 3 points. But now, the beauty of that picture is they snapped that picture at just the right time. I knew that there was not much time left. We're talking less than 10 seconds in the third period. I was going to lose. I had nothing to lose. I had been beating all my opponents by pinning them with a headlock, and I ended up with a record of 13-6 that year. And one of those 13, I just said, you know what? I'm going to go for it. If I don't go for it, he's going to just beat me if he rides me. So the worst thing that can happen is he's going to pin me or he's going to beat me by technical points. With less than 10 seconds left, it was pretty much over. His teammates were all applauding him. They're like, it's over. You got him. And then I did it. I just pulled my arm up, grabbed his hand, got my headlock in, which was the move that I used all the time in 8th grade to win. And his shoulders hit the mat and I pinned him. Everybody on my side lost their mind. Everybody on the Manchester side, they were like jaws wide open, couldn't believe that Ben Marshall was beaten. Now, after my victory, that picture was taken, and we fast forward a year to 9th grade. I run into him at a tournament, and he won the Ocean County Championship in 8th grade. I got third, and I didn't get to wrestle him in the tournament because I lost earlier and missed in the semifinals. So I didn't get to meet him in the finals. So I got third because I beat my opponent for the third place. But what he told me when I ran into him in 8th grade and 9th grade at that tournament just made that picture so much more valuable to me. And when I had it, I really just coveted it. And I kept that picture for years. I had that picture up so we're talking about from 8th grade. So I was 13 going on 14 when I got that picture. And I lost the picture, unfortunately, when I was, how old was I? 98, 20, 2001 is when I lost it. So I was probably 23 when I lost it. But he made that picture so valuable when he said to me during that tournament. He looked at me and goes, Henderson, that year like last year when I won the Ocean County Championship, you got third. You need to know something. I don't know if you knew this. You were the only person who beat me all year. I was the guy who beat the champion. And at that moment, I was like, yeah, I spoke in existence that I was going to be the Ocean County champion. I didn't win the title at that tournament. I didn't get to wrestle him. But me versus him, I was undefeated. And I beat him. And we never wrestled. Once one match, me against him. And I turned him in that real quick moment. And I won the match. So, in that way, in some small way, my third place bronze medal, kind of gold. So, it's that picture that has a lot of sentiment to me. Uh, that really was a fun picture. Speaking of wrestling and getting pinned, The picture and pictures, the painting that is in front of you right now, that is a part of my wrestling series. This is the last one. I only have three. I was going to make maybe four, but some of them didn't feel right, so I didn't do it. And so my wrestling series only has three paintings. And when I was a little upset because I wanted to make four paintings or five, I then realized that, well, this is a series based on professional wrestling, so it only makes sense to have one, two, three, right? I thought so. This is the second of the third of the three paintings in the wrestling series. I call it Spear. Now, all of you who know that the last segment that I did before this one was the Spear of the Week. And I love the Spear of the Week. And the Spear is just a great move. It really is. Um, it definitely made its appearance heavily in the 90s. And I think that it's not going to change anytime soon. I think the Spear is going to be a big move that people do. Men do it, women do it. It's just an impactful move that makes everybody go, ooh, especially when it's hit just right. And this painting is called Spear. Once again, it is the second of three in my wrestling series of paintings. Now, I'm about to wrap things up because I'm not going to lie to you. It's now July 31st, and I am up way past my bedtime. It's now midnight on July 31st, and I really should have been asleep an hour and a half ago. But of course, I had to do this show. Just had to. And I'm glad that I did because I always have a lot of fun doing these shows. I hope you have fun listening to them. You can find me on Instagram at Philip Henderson 5102. You can join us. Join us on the Lip Facebook group. Join us. There's always room for one more. Always. Of course, you can check me out. I'm somewhere out there on X and on TikTok even. You can find me on all those places. But the most important thing that I can ask of any of you is to subscribe to at Phil the Lip, the channel that this podcast and all my podcasts have been on for a year now. I've been doing them all steady at Phil the Lip on YouTube. Subscribe to that. And now I leave you with the words of wisdom. When it comes right down to it, if I got the opportunity to encounter that supremely gifted receipt checker, I would tell him this. And I am serious. It's terrible, but I would definitely tell that receipt checker this. I know you've been waiting patiently for me to insult you, but I'm really busy and I just don't have time to. Once again, the words of wisdom for that receipt taker are, I know you have been waiting patiently for me to insult you, but I'm really busy and just don't have time to. Those are definitely words of wisdom that I have for him. And on that note, my name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lip.